Have you ever thought about how learning history can also make your English stronger? When you listen to great stories, stories about empires, kings, battles, and dreams, you are not only learning what happened in the past, you are also training your mind to understand English naturally. Every word becomes a bridge between language and knowledge. So welcome to our channel. Here we learn English through real history, stories that changed the world. And today we will travel back in time to meet one of the most powerful empires in human history, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was not born great. It began as a small group of warriors living in the mountains of Anatolia. They had few weapons, little money, and almost no land. But they had something special: faith, discipline, and vision. Over 600 years, they built an empire that controlled parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. They ruled millions of people, led great armies, and created a rich culture that still influences the modern world. Today, we will learn how the Ottoman Empire was born, how it grew, how it ruled, and how it finally ended. We will meet brave sultans, clever commanders, powerful queens, and ordinary people who made history. And as you listen, you will also learn hundreds of new English words and phrases naturally, without stress. So get comfortable, open your ears, and let's begin the incredible story of the empire that changed the world.
Our journey begins in the late 1200s in the land we now call Turkey. At that time, this area was full of small Turkish tribes. They used to follow the Seljuk Empire, but the Seljuks were weak and breaking apart. One of those tribes was led by a man named Osman. He was strong, brave, and deeply religious. He believed his people were chosen to build a new empire, one that would spread justice and faith. Osman's tribe lived near the border of the Byzantine Empire, a Christian empire that ruled parts of southeastern Europe and Western Asia. Byzantine towns were rich but poorly defended. Osman and his men started to raid these towns, taking control of small areas one by one. Osman wasn't just a warrior, he was also smart in politics. He married the daughter of a respected scholar to gain influence and allies. He treated local people fairly, earning their trust and loyalty. Over time, Osman's fame grew. More warriors joined him, and neighboring tribes started to follow his leadership. By around 1300, people began calling his followers Ottomans, from his name, Osman. This was the seed of what would become one of the greatest empires in history. When Osman died around 1324, his son Orhan took control. Orhan continued his father's dream to expand and unite the Turkish tribes under one banner. In 1326, Orhan captured the city of Bursa. It became the first capital of the Ottoman state. Bursa grew into a busy trade center filled with markets, mosques, and schools. The Ottomans were no longer just warriors. They were now builders of civilization.
Under Osman's son Orhan, and later his grandson Murad I, the Ottomans continued to grow. They organized their army, built strong fortresses, and introduced new systems of government. One of their smartest ideas was the Janissary army, an elite group of soldiers. These soldiers were taken as boys from Christian families in the empire, trained from childhood to serve the Sultan. They learned Turkish, converted to Islam, and became some of the most disciplined warriors in the world. The Janissaries were loyal only to the Sultan. They protected the empire from enemies and helped it expand. Their training was so strict that many European leaders feared them for centuries. The Ottomans also created a smart system of administration. Each region they conquered was allowed to keep its local customs and leaders as long as they paid taxes and followed Ottoman law. This made it easier to control large areas with many different cultures. By the middle of the 14th century, the Ottomans had crossed into Europe. They took parts of Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Macedonia. In 1389, at the Battle of Kosovo, the Ottomans fought against a large Christian army. It was a bloody battle, but the Ottomans won. This opened the door to even more expansion into Europe. But their biggest dream was still ahead, the great city of Constantinople. Constantinople was the jewel of the Byzantine Empire. It was one of the richest and strongest cities in the world. It stood between Europe and Asia, controlling trade routes and sea passages. For centuries, many armies had tried to capture it, but all had failed. Its walls were huge, thick, and impossible to break with old weapons. Then came Mehmed II, also known as Mehmed the Conqueror. He became sultan at only 19 years old, full of energy and ambition. He had one dream: to take Constantinople and make it the capital of a new world empire. In 1453, Mehmed gathered a massive army, about 80,000 soldiers, ships, and the largest cannons ever made at that time. The cannons could fire huge stones that shook the ground and broke walls that had stood for centuries. For 53 days, the battle raged. The Byzantine defenders fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and exhausted. Finally, on May 29, 1453, the Ottomans broke through the walls and entered the city. Constantinople fell. The Byzantine Empire, which had lasted more than 1,000 years, was over. Mehmed rode into the city, entered the great church of Hagia Sophia, and declared it a mosque. But instead of destroying the city, he protected it. He rebuilt Constantinople and renamed it Istanbul, the city of Islam. It became the new capital of the Ottoman Empire and one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Mehmed's victory shocked Europe. The Christian world had lost its greatest fortress, and a new Muslim empire now stood at its gates. But Mehmed wasn't just a conqueror. He was also a visionary. He invited artists, scientists, and traders to come to Istanbul. He built schools, palaces, and libraries. Under his rule, the empire became not just powerful, but also cultured and wealthy. After Mehmed came several strong sultans, but none were greater than Suleiman the Magnificent, who ruled from 1520 to 1566. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire reached its peak, its golden age. The empire stretched from Hungary to Iraq, and from North Africa to the Arabian Peninsula. It ruled more than 25 million people. Suleiman was a brilliant general. He led his armies in person, capturing new lands in Europe and the Middle East. He was also known as the lawgiver, because he created a fair legal system for everyone, Muslims, Christians, and Jews. He believed that justice was the key to power. Life in Suleiman's empire was full of culture and art. Beautiful mosques, gardens, and bridges were built. One of the most famous architects, Mimar Sinan, designed more than 300 buildings, including the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, a masterpiece of beauty and harmony. Trade flourished. Merchants from Asia, Africa, and Europe came to Ottoman markets to sell spices, silk, and gold. Istanbul became one of the richest cities in the world. But Suleiman's greatness was not only in his conquests or his buildings. He also supported poets, scholars, and musicians.
the Ottoman court became a center of learning and art. During his rule, the empire became a place where many cultures and religions lived together in peace. Christians, Jews, and Muslims worked together in trade, education, and science. This peaceful coexistence was one of the reasons the empire lasted so long.
So, what was life like for ordinary people in the Ottoman Empire? The empire was divided into provinces. Each province was ruled by a governor who reported to the Sultan. The Sultan himself lived in the Topkapi Palace, a vast complex with gardens, schools, mosques, and secret rooms. It was like a small city inside Istanbul. The Sultan's family lived in the harem, a private area of the palace. The women of the harem were educated and sometimes very influential. The Sultan's mother, called the Valide Sultan, often had great power in political decisions. The Ottoman society had many classes. At the top were scholars, judges, and officials. Then came soldiers, merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. Education was important. Children learned to read and write Arabic and Turkish. Many studied religion, mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. The empire produced many famous scientists and doctors. Trade was a huge part of Ottoman life. Markets, called bazaars, were full of colorful goods: carpets, spices, perfumes, jewelry, and fabrics. People from all over the world came to buy and sell. The Ottomans were also known for their delicious food: kebabs, rice dishes, sweets, and strong Turkish coffee. Coffee houses became popular places where men gathered to talk, play games, and discuss politics. Despite its size, the empire allowed freedom of religion. Each community could follow its own rules. This system was called the millet system. It helped keep peace among the many peoples living under Ottoman rule. After Suleiman's death, the empire slowly began to weaken. New sultans were not as strong or wise. Many preferred to stay inside the palace, enjoying luxury instead of leading the army. The Janissaries, once the pride of the empire, became corrupt and lazy. They resisted new weapons and refused to change their old ways. Europe, on the other hand, was changing quickly. The Industrial Revolution and new sea routes made European countries rich and powerful. Spain, France, and Britain began exploring and trading across the world. The Ottomans could not keep up. In the 1600s and 1700s, the empire lost many battles. They were pushed out of Europe, losing Hungary, Greece, and parts of the Balkans. The economy suffered and corruption grew. Still, the Ottomans tried to reform. Some sultans introduced schools, factories, and modern laws, but change came too slowly. The empire was simply too large, and different nationalities inside it, Arabs, Greeks, Serbs, Armenians, all wanted independence. In the 19th century, the empire was called the sick man of Europe. Its enemies waited for the right time to divide it. The final blow came during World War I, 1914 to 1918. The Ottoman Empire joined the war on the side of Germany. They fought bravely, but they lost. After the war, Britain and France divided Ottoman lands among themselves. Arab countries became separate states. The empire was broken. In 1922, the last sultan, Mehmed VI, left Istanbul on a ship. The 600-year-old Ottoman Empire was over. But a new leader, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, rose from the ashes. He led the Turkish War of Independence and created a new, modern nation, the Republic of Turkey. He ended the Sultanate, introduced democracy, and opened a new chapter of history. Even though the Ottoman Empire ended, its influence never disappeared. Its architecture, music, food, and traditions are still alive in Turkey and many other countries. Their art, carpets, and calligraphy are admired all over the world. And their story still teaches us valuable lessons. The rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire shows us how discipline, unity, and vision can build greatness, and how arrogance, corruption, and resistance to change can destroy it. It reminds us that empires come and go, but ideas, knowledge, and culture last forever. So, my friend, you have just listened to one of the greatest stories in world history. You learned how a small tribe became a world empire, and how that empire shaped the modern world we live in today. But you did something even more powerful. You improved your English through history. Every time you listen, you are not just learning words, you are learning to think in English. That is how real progress happens. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that make you smarter, stronger, and more fluent. This is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of your journey to better English and deeper understanding of our world. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.